It's finally time to address the elephant in the room. The UFC has a problem. Not that they're not a global juggernaut, because they are. Not because they're the combat sports leader, because they are. And not because they don't have the best fighters, because they do. But the thing about the UFC is they've really started to tail away from a lot of the things that they really built their foundation on in their formative years. Their fan base was one of the most diehard, hardcore fan bases that any sport has, more than football, more than baseball. Being a diehard MMA fan is just different. And yet, in recent years, they've priced out their most hardcore fans with these extravagant shows that, yes, draw in ratings and views and are huge box office hits. But for the hardcore fans of the sport that you built your fan base on, they can't afford to go to these shows. And you're pushing out the true fans that you really were able to build the sport on and that helped the sport survive in the early days. Not to mention undeserved title shots and multiple discrepancies in the broadcast with the Paramount deal that a lot of fans are complaining about and really feel like take a hit to the actual product. So let's dive a little bit deeper. Kicking things off, I want to start to where it all started, and that was when the UFC sold back in 2019 for 4.2 billion to WME IMG. And of course, they would eventually go public, became a publicly traded entity, and also formed with WWE to form the TKO group. And that's not necessarily the bad thing in general. I mean, the UFC's growing. They sold. Um, Dana White had a little bit of a meltdown, locked himself in his hotel room because, for those who don't know the story, the Fertitas, Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta, two brothers, bought the UFC back in 2001. I don't remember the exact amount. It was in the low millions. But they instilled their good high school friend, Dana White, as the president. So Dana and the Fertitas ran the company for 18 years before it sold in 2019. And when this happened, Dana was terrified. His best buddies had just sold the company. He locked himself in his hotel room and did not come out for a couple days. And it wasn't really as it was a pretty seamless transition at first. You didn't really notice anything different. The broadcast stayed the same, the team stayed the same, the fighters stayed the same. Everything kind of held true. But over time, things started to change. And when you look back in time, you can really tell how different things are from when they bought the company in 2019 versus the current day product in 2026. First of all, one of the things Dana said would never happen when he was the president of the UFC was pricing out the fans. And well, congratulations, Dana. It's happened. The Sphere was really a big turning point for me because the Sphere was supposed to be this huge, once in a lifetime event for the UFC, the only gate that ever broke 20 million in the UFC's history, the largest gate they've ever had. But the thing was, you looked at the prices for that event, the cheapest seat in the house was just under $800. Do you think me, like a regular UFC fan, could afford that? Or just regular MMA fan in general? A lot of people couldn't. And a lot of people cannot afford to go to these shows. Another great example, the UFC came to Atlanta, my hometown, in 2019, had two interim title fights. It was Israel Adesanya, Kelvin Gastelum, and Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, both on the same night. My dad and I bought tickets, two tickets, front row of the upper deck, for $550 total. When the UFC came back to Atlanta in 2024, no, 2025, excuse me, June of 2025, Kamaru Usman, Joaquin Buckley headlined a fight night. No title fights, no interim title fights, no nothing. I mean, solid card, don't get me wrong. For a fight night, it was a very good card. Rose Namajunas was on the card, Usman Buckley. Great. Fun main event. But the thing was, tickets for that event, for the worst seat in the house, cost more than the front row of the upper deck did for the pay-per-view that my dad and I went to in 2019. So it cost more money to go see a fight night than it did to go see a pay-per-view with two interim title fights 7 years ago or 6 years before this. That's crazy and inexcusable for the UFC, to be completely honest with you. There's no world where that should happen in a sport where Dana said, "Oh, I don't want to price out my biggest fans." Now take a look at the White House event, right? It's closed to the public. 5,000 people that have been vetted, VIPs, suit and tie politicians are going to be the ones attending this event. I'm sorry, but the public exposure is great for the UFC. Don't get me wrong. But do you really think that guys like Donald Trump, JD Vance, RFK Jr., do you really think these people care about these prelim fighters that nobody knows? No. Do you know who really cares about those guys? Fans like me. Fans that used to go to these cards. Fan that used to buy every pay-per-view no matter what. Those are the people that care about these fights and those fighters. A lot of these people don't even know anyone outside of the big stars. Those are the only people they know. And so now you're closing off the event to the general public when that's exactly what you built this sport off of. And Dana himself said he's not going to price out the fans. You know where the real fans get to go? There's going to be 84,000 seats in the park across the street from the White House. That's where the real fans get to go. So the real fans get to go pay to sit in a park and watch it on a big screen, while the 5,000 VIPs get to go inside get to go inside the venue and watch the fights live. I understand the security for the White House, but your real fans, the people that built this sport, the blue collar people that was your target audience in the 2000s, they don't get to go. The diehard fans that have been fans of this sport since the 90s, the 2000s. I know I came on late. I came on in 2015, but still, I've been a fan of this sport for 11 years. If I wanted to go to the White House event, I couldn't go. Even if I could afford it, which I can't, I couldn't go. And they don't think that's a problem. Just tickets for a normal UFC event in general are so expensive that they're pricing out their diehard fan base, and it's sad. On top of that, you've got unjust title shots, and 2026 has been the epitome of that. Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett was a phenomenal fight. Do not get me wrong. I understand the rivalry with Ilya and Paddy that you're trying to build up, but there's a clear number one in Arman Tsarukyan. I understand he pulled out of the title fight late last year, but he weighed in as the backup for Topuria Oliveira, just like you asked him. He fought Dan Hooker and won, just like you asked him. Yeah, the headbutt, not great. But he's the clear guy. Everybody would rather see him and Ilya than Paddy and Ilya or Justin and Ilya. Everybody wants to see Arman get a shot because he's the number one guy. He's the best lightweight in the world outside of Ilya. That's the fight. That's the best fight. Arman and Islam, when Islam was still the lightweight champ, that was the fight, other than Ilya coming up. Arman's the guy. Look at featherweight. You got Movsar Evloev, the number one contender, undefeated, sitting there fightless, while Diego Lopez gets a rematch, an immediate rematch nonetheless, against Alexander Volkanovski. And I love Diego Lopez. A lot of people love Diego Lopez. He's a super exciting guy, super likable guy, always brings the fight every time. He's never in a boring fight. But Volkanovski just beat him 4 rounds to 1 or 3 rounds to 2 or something like that. And you want to throw him in an immediate rematch? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. Or if Movsar, I know he hasn't had a finish in the UFC. I know he missed all of last year. If you want to give it to Lerone Murphy, he just knocked out Aaron Pico cold last year. Probably the knockout of the year. It was my pick for knockout of the year, at least. Not that that means anything to the UFC personally, but either way, great knockout. So you want to give it to a more exciting guy? Give it to Lerone Murphy. That's better than Diego. And again, that's no disrespect to Diego Lopez whatsoever. It's still an interesting fight. It's compelling somehow. But Volkanovski just beat him soundly. Why is he getting an immediate rematch? It makes no sense. And I understand Diego had a win in between, but this is Volkanovski's first fight since then. And you're giving him a rematch against the guy he just soundly beat. It doesn't make sense at all. And it's just going to continue. And especially with the White House, they're saying they want to have all these title fights on it, but you're cannibalizing all the other cards. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. It took Ankalaev a long time to get a title shot too. He got passed up for Khalil Roundtree. They're going for the more exciting guys and pushing the more exciting guys than they are for the guys that actually deserve it. And a lot of people have forgotten about this since Merab had such a legendary run last year, but it took him forever to get a title shot too. And I understand a big part of that was he didn't want to fight Aljamain Sterling, his best friend. That's fine, but as soon as Aljo lost the belt, Merab should have been fighting for the belt. You know who did? Cheeto Vera, who had one win before fighting Sean O'Malley. He was on a one-fight win streak. And he got to fight Sean O'Malley for the title instead of Merab, who was on what, a 9-fight win streak at the time? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was a 9-fight win streak at the time. And it just keeps happening more and more frequent. And as this year has progressed and more fights get announced, you see it. Arman getting passed up. Diego getting the shot over Movsar and Lerone. It just doesn't make sense. And I hope that changes. It's not always the case, but there's just so many times when the wrong person gets the shot. And again, the Khalil Roundtree Alex Pineda fight was great, but Ankalaev should have been the one fighting for the belt. Ankalaev and Jan, they fought for the belt and drew I understand they weren't thrilled with the fight. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world. But when you have a world title fight that goes to a draw, you run it back. You don't give the shot to Jamal Hill against Glover Teixeira for the vacant belt. That makes no sense. And a lot of people argued, including myself, that Ankalaev was the best guy in the world. I thought he beat Jan Blachowicz that night. You could argue a draw, that's fine. But then you run it back, and Ankalaev didn't get a title shot for another, what, 2.5 years? It just isn't, it doesn't make sense. I'm worried about that with middleweight, too. A lot of people want to see Fluffy Hernandez. That's great, and don't get me wrong, I don't think Fluffy Hernandez is the most undeserving. And if he beat Sean Strickland, it's a hell of a win. But Nassourdine Imavov was the number one guy before Drakus lost. So now he slides down to number two. He won a fight as the number one contender. When he fought Kyle Borralho, Imavov was ranked number one, and he won. He should be undisputed the next for Khamzat Chimaev. It should not be close. Welterweight, they're talking about Kamaru Usman getting the shot against Islam. He was on a 3-fight win streak before he beat 3-fight losing streak before he beat Joaquin Buckley. And you've got guys like Carlos Prates, who I wouldn't even argue is the most deserving, but I wouldn't be upset with it. You got Jack Della Maddalena. Well, I'm sorry. Jack Della just lost. Excuse that. Jack Della Maddalena's rumored to fight Carlos Prates. That's why his name came to my head. But you got Ian Gary. You got Michael Morales sitting right there. Any of those three, Prates, Morales, or Gary, could get the shot. And they're talking about Kamaru Usman, who's 1-3 in his last 4. I understand he's a legend, but he should not be anywhere near a title fight after that. He needs to win. He needs to beat one of those top guys, one of those three, either Prates, Morales, or Gary. He needs to beat one of those three if he wants to jump the line, and that doesn't even include Shavkat. And Shavkat, I understand, missed all of last year. He probably is going to need another win, but I'd put him in there before Kamaru Usman. And I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense. We've got to, this is a sport. I understand it's entertainment, but it's also a sport. We're here to see the best fight the best. And part of the problem with the sport getting so popular is they're going for more fan engagement. They're going for the more exciting personalities, the more exciting styles. And I understand that's part of it. It's a business too. You have to sell the fight. But at the same time, you've got an undefeated number one contender at featherweight that's getting passed up. You've got Arman Tsarukyan on a very impressive 5-fight win streak, the clear number one guy at lightweight, not getting the shot because Patty and Gaethje were more popular and more fun. But they're not the best fight. And a lot of people think Ilya is going to smoke Justin Gaethje. Personally, I think it's going to be over inside the first 10 minutes. And I love Gaethje. Gaethje's one of my favorite fighters. But Arman is the biggest challenge for Ilya at 155. That's the fight that people want to see. We want to see the best fight the best because that's what was promised to us in the early days. That's what the sport was built off of. You had this guy who people thought was the best. You had this guy who people thought was the best. And you put them in there to find out which one was the best. Now it's, well, this guy's the best and this guy's the second best, but this guy's more exciting, so we're going to put him in here, and the second best guy can fight this other guy. That's what it's become, essentially. And it's annoying to a lot of people. And now one of the newest ones for me is the Paramount deal. I think the Paramount deal is phenomenal for the sport. That is not why I'm talking about the Paramount deal today. What I'm talking about is the commercial breaks in between walkouts and during the corner work on the main card of numbered events. Because during the pay-per-view era, I understand we paid $80, and with Paramount it's like $9 a month. But during the pay-per-view era, when you bought that pay-per-view for the main card, you did not have any advertisements during the walkouts. You did not have any advertisements in between rounds. Now with Paramount, if they want to put an ad up, they had a little thing where there was a corner of the screen that it took up the whole corner, top to bottom, side to side. And you still had the screen and the sound up so you could hear what was going on in between rounds. That's fine. I'm good with that. If you want to have commercial breaks during the main card, I'm saving $80 a month with this subscription. So you know what? If you want to have commercials during the main card, that's totally fine. But do it in between fights. Don't do it during walkouts. Don't do it during corner work. And it's only for the main card of the numbered events. Because on every single fight night card that I've watched, whether it was on Fox or ESPN, and those are the only two um, broadcasters I've seen them on. I wasn't around during the Spike TV days, but on Fox and ESPN, you had commercials during fight nights. That's fine. And even on the main card, I'm not saying no ads. I'm saying let us have the purity of the sport because the walkout is what builds the hype. And a lot of the true fans love hearing the corner work. I love hearing what Trevor Whitman says to Justin Gaethje. I love hearing what Eric Nixick says to some of his. I love hearing these corners work. That's a part of the sport, and the walkout is a huge part of hyping up the fight. You hear the music, you hear the crowd, you see what kind of reaction they get. The commentators build it up. And even if you want to do it, because Paramount has an ad-free subscription for $9 and or I'm sorry, with ads for $9 and ad-free for 14. So even if you want to do it where again, just for the numbered event main cards, that's all I'm asking for. If you want to do it where the $9 people get commercials during the walkouts and in between corner, that's fine, except for the main event, whatever. And then you could pay for the ad-free version and you can see the walkouts. You can see the corner work in between rounds. Do that. Because for a lot of these fans, especially like diehard MMA fans like me, I got Paramount to watch the UFC. I'm not watching anything else on Paramount Plus. I didn't have Paramount Plus before I got this. Now, are there shows on there or movies that I could watch now that I have it? Sure. But I got this to watch the UFC. And I paid for the ad-free version. Now I know there's a disclaimer that says except for live events. I get it. I'm just saying this is a solution for a lot of these fans that don't like the ads because some of the fans don't care about the ads during the walkout. They're not the diehard fans like we are. If you don't want to see the walkout, that's fine. You can skip it. But what I'm saying is for the fans that care, let them do the ad-free version. And then during the main card, during the numbered event, main cards, what would have been a pay-per-view, we can see the walkout. We can see the in-between rounds because I would pay $5 extra for that. For the casual fan, I know that may sound crazy, but for the diehard fan, you're going to understand that. I would pay $5 extra for that, no problem. I have no problem doing that. So give us that chance. And I understand live events are different, that's fine. But again, the pay-per-view main card for the UFC has always been pure. Do you have a couple commercials here and there? Yes. But you've never skipped a walkout and you've never skipped corner work in between rounds on a pay-per-view main card ever. And that's my big issue with the Paramount deal is it's ad after ad after ad. And it's a lot, and a lot of fans noticed it. The show didn't flow the same, and with skipping some of those walkouts, it felt like a fight night. It lost some of its hype for me. And again, I understand to a lot of newer viewers and a lot of casual fans, that's going to sound crazy. But to me, a diehard fan, it felt big when you ordered the pay-per-view because you knew you were getting a straight run of 5 fights with a huge main event at the end of it. And this one you didn't. You got those ads in the middle, and it really made the event feel like a fight night to me. It did not feel like a pay-per-view. Now, part of that was we didn't really have the best title fight, but still, like when you bought the pay-per-view main card, it still felt big. And this one just didn't have that same feel when it's overrun by advertisements during the main card. And it just killed some of the show for me. So for the UFC, that's what I want to see. And there's a bunch of problems you could get into, like fighter pay. That's a really big one that a lot of people are talking about. That's not really what I'm going to dive into. That's a story for another day. And that's absolutely an issue that should be addressed. But that's not what I'm here to do specifically in this podcast tonight. I'm more just talking about that you're going to start to lose a lot of that intimate feel that these hardcore fans have built with the sport over the years. And that's dangerous. When you lose the foundation of your fan base, that's dangerous. And I'm not saying they're just going to completely lose it. I mean, the hardcore fans have been through this sport through so many ups and downs, through so many crazy eras that you're never going to lose me completely as a fight fan. But when your hardcore fan base can't get invested the way that they feel like they used to, that is when it becomes a problem. And that's what the UFC needs to fix. They're losing touch with their foundation. The true foundation, the cinder blocks of their fan base, they're losing touch with fast. I hope they can get it together and get that big fight feel back for us fans that really care.